Today, it's another episode of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker on this January 12th, 2022. We're just rolling along into the new year and lots of excitement happening somewhere, but not necessarily here. Today, we have no guest, and we have a guest next week, though, and the week following. Our client is going to be Genocide Schmenocide.
Behold, trapped in a hellscape of their own invention, socially unaware old white men bound by the pretense of being fake lawyers yet knowing no law, no exquisite Latin terminology, they are inexplicably compelled to quibble over minutia, squabble over triflings, and bicker like those who value their backyards far too highly without even knowing the difference between an easement and an alleyway. At this very moment, you have entered the heart of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. Let's get started.
Today's episode, just so you all know, is brought to you by Mr. Clean's lemon-scented ethnic cleanser with Damn It All. If you're a privileged, superior white person and some alleged minority is demanding equal rights or simply wants to move into your neighborhood, get Mr. Clean's lemon-scented ethnic cleanser with Damn It All. Using the Super Economy Master Race bottle, spray Mr. Clean's lemon-scented ethnic cleanser around the homes of the targeted offenders. It gets to work quickly by invading your local TV and radio stations and spreading stereotypes, generalizations, and blatant lies to rile up your fellow supremacists to get out those pitchforks and certain fiery religious symbols. Before you know it, that pretend minority will be gone and protesting to some liberal city that's nowhere near you. That'll teach those socialists a lesson. Buy some today. Only available from unmarked vans behind your local Piggly Wiggly. The special ingredient Damn It All contains Zyklon B and should not be used in your pets, children, or your local B'nai B'rith, as you run the risk of being accused of war crimes. And for smaller ethnic messes, get Mr. Clean's Magic Skin Eraser to remove all ancestral traces of that pesky minority. One wipe and it's like they never even existed. Recommended by 5 out of 5 neo-Nazis and Trump supporters. Okay, that is our sponsor for today. And
I think that might also be available on the dark web. Don't you think?
It might be on the dark. You are like so stuck on the dark web these days.
Well, there are bad things there, and I think they'd sell you that on the dark web.
I think you have like some mystical vision of what the dark web is, like some strange idea of what's going on there that's filled with I don't know, subterfuge and espionage or something. I don't know.
I just want to know if Alex Jones knows we took one of his sponsors. I mean, he's going to be pissed. I'm not going to field that phone call when his people call. They're fucking bananas.
It's like, hey, that was ours. What are you doing? All right. Well, should we get right into it, or should we start off with like asking Greg or something?
But whatever you guys want to do.
All right. Well, let's just.
Has Greg gotten bigger?
Greg is having issues because he's using his phone today, everybody.
His head looks so small compared to his body. I don't know if he's just fluffing up that green thing, or if there's some weird
it's always been like that. It's just that he was using his tablet before he's using his phone today, and that's what's causing his audio glitches now too, is because he's too far away from his phone. And that's causing his sound to cut out too.
His torso fills up the entire screen. And his head is so small.
It's like he got attacked by headhunters.
Oh, that's better.
I'm a shrunken head.
He spent too much time in Polynesia. All right, let's get into our client.
All Polynesians are headhunters.
What was that, Greg?
Not all Polynesians are headhunters. That's
well,
racist.
I wasn't suggesting that all Polynesians were, but in Polynesia, that's where a lot of the headhunting culture existed.
Culture, is it?
Quibble. You're quibbling. You're racism.
I'm providing historic details, is what I'm doing.
I'm getting a call from Papua New Guinea right now. Hello? Yeah, I know. Fuck him. That's what I think. Anyway, yeah. All right.
All right, our client for today here on the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker, and we're going to have audio issues because Greg sucks. So
I do.
Our client is Genocide Schmenocide, and I think it's worth discussing just because no one really gets into the details of what are the steps that lead to genocide? What leads to that stage of where an entire ethnic group are targeted for murder and for destruction?
Well, I think our sponsor today covered it. Those are very simple steps. Like start just insinuating things. The media says, "Oh, these people aren't good, and maybe they're not good citizens, and maybe we should do something about them." Like the Uzbeks in Russia.
What about the Uzbeks, Greg?
The Russians were like, "We don't like the Uzbeks," so they started like doing propaganda, like, "Oh, the Uzbeks don't contribute; they're bad."
But what makes why the Uzbeks? Why not the
Because
non-Uzbeks? The Cossacks or
The
the
Uzbeks were like the
Turkmenistans
Russia.
or I don't know.
I just know this from an SCTV gag, but I think the
Wow,
Uzbeks
so this
are
is
like,
a very dated gag.
Wait a
This is like-
second. So you're saying that you get information about Uzbeki genocide from SCTV?
it was very smart comedy. They researched their shit. So I think the Uzbeks were like the hillbillies of Russia. They were like,
Were they?
these backward people who just like lived in the countryside. So they're like, these Uzbeks, they're not with the program. We got to get rid of them. They're
Yeah,
not
but
like
they obviously weren't fully successful because they got their own stand when the Soviet Union collapsed. So
I
there
know.
is an Uzbekistan now, as well as a number of other stands.
Yeah, there's an Israel, Matt, and
An
everyone's been
Israel
trying to
stand?
kill them. No, they've been trying to kill Jews for 3,000 years. They got
Yeah,
their
but
own country.
Israel wasn't part of Soviet Union.
No, I'm saying
That's what you say.
And that's what I
I'm just
know.
saying
There's
it
always
doesn't
been a
matter how
connection
persecuted
between
people are.
Israel and Russia.
I'm just saying that it doesn't matter how persecuted people are; they can still get their own country eventually. They can win out.
So you're
'Cause
saying is
Israel-
that the 100 million Native Americans that were wiped out here in North America are going to be getting their own country at some point?
They got their casinos.
I think they can have the Dakotas. I mean, and Montana, whatever.
They got their reses. They got the reservations.
So
Those are
you're okay with
beautiful-
them living on reservations, not having their own countries?
But technically, a reservation is their own country. It's not
Technically.
part of the United States. That's why they can have casinos.
Well, I know it's not part of the United States, but is it considered a country?
Yeah.
Because we're still overseeing it. There's a Bureau of Indian Affairs which oversees the reservations.
But still, they make their own laws. Is Uzbekistan really like out of the shadow of the Soviet, of Russia?
Well, they are their
Probably not.
own country and they have their
I
own
think they are.
parliament, and
Sure they do.
they're not run by Putin.
They're in the UN.
Oh, yes, they are.
Well, maybe they are, but at least on paper they're not. Whereas on paper in the United States, the reservations are kind of run by Americans, the American
They're run
government.
by Americans.
Here's an
too.
interesting piece of information which has absolutely nothing to do with our client for today, but it ties in tangentially. You guys may not know this, but slavery is not fully illegal in the United States.
I
I
know
knew
certain
that. I live in
states just
Florida.
got rid of it 10 years ago. Like there's certain states like 20 years ago, like, oh, it's still in the books.
Well, no, the 13th Amendment, which contained like the emancipation of slaves, has essentially a clause within it that gives the government the right to enslave people as punishment.
Oh,
or-
like convict.
Or indentured, exactly. So technically, slavery is still legal in the United States by the government.
But you have to earn it by being a convict.
Well, yeah, but it's like at any stage, any type of crime, you are put into that
I know
category.
it's usually black people. It's a very crafty way to basically keep black people enslaved. I saw that documentary. It's on Netflix. You should all watch it. It's Roman numeral 13. And it is just the whole prison system we have now, where it's like for profit. It has all these ulterior motives. That was started in 1870, where they were like, wait, we can't enslave these black people. We don't like this. We got to figure out a way to keep them enslaved. So black peoples were rounded up. Did I just say black peoples? I think I did.
I don't
You
know what
did.
you're talking about.
You did, Greg. And
The black peoples were rounded up for just vagrancy. Anyone who's black. Oh,
How
you're
many
black.
Black
different-
peoples were rounded up.
how many different
Oh,
black peoples
no.
are there, Greg?
Black peoples. The peoples of the blacks. They were just like, it was all of a sudden it was open season. Like, oh, a black person is vagrant. He's wandering around. He doesn't have enough money in his wallet. We can put him in prison.
Yeah, but do you think that was done throughout every state in the country?
The South. It was in the South. Yeah,
Okay.
definitely in the South.
But there's plenty of people of many different races in prison across the country, and all of the states.
It is.
Right?
But they
And-
realized how profitable it was, and they were like, okay, let's go beyond black people. Anyone, it's like we can get free labor out of them. Or I think they pay them 8 cents an hour, like those guys who work in prison for companies and stuff.
Yeah.
It's basically slave wages, and they get nothing. They get like paid less than Thailand workers get.
What do you think prevented the genocide of African Americans here?
They were too useful. We needed them.
But
to build the
Native
country.
Americans were useful as well, and
Not
but
as useful.
I,
You know, I read this somewhere.
why?
that-
Why are they less useful, Brendan?
Well, because you know the
I want to hear this
African-Americans-
interesting form of racism. Let's get a take on this. Why are Native Americans less useful than African Americans?
Okay, first of all, you pose the question, and so to pose the question, you're asking why is there these two things being different?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that the African Americans were much more in like a part of our culture. They weren't living like, you know, a lot of Native Americans were, who were a very, very, very different culture. So they weren't very used to the way that the American culture was, whereas African Americans were. You know what I mean?
I think maybe it's more that African Americans in the beginning were considered property of the white folks, you know,
Mhm.
back, and Native Americans were the enemy of the white folks. And I
Yeah.
think that might be more of the difference.
Well,
You know,
why
I
didn't we
think
just
this-
make the Native Americans property as well? Could have done that. Would have been
I
easy.
read this years ago. This is the reason I heard. And this sounds very kind of racist too, but I remember reading that the Native Americans couldn't be enslaved. They would just die. They just wouldn't do it or couldn't do it. Just their mentality of being like a separate, so different from European, even African society. They tried to enslave the Native Americans.
Well-
They would just die off. They just couldn't work. They would just like die, literally die. They couldn't stand to be enslaved.
That's very noble and
I
all
know
that,
it sounds
but-
very racist, but
Native Americans enslaved each other. I mean, you know, it wasn't like slavery didn't exist among Native American cultures.
it was a different kind of slavery. Like when they would like
It's
capture.
a different kind of what kind of
It
slavery
was.
was.
They would basically adopt them into the tribe. Like so, like they would like conquer, say, another tribe, and they'd take the children and they'd say, "Okay, now you're part of the tribe. You're part of the tribe. Not you're like lesser than us." Even though we conquered you and we stole you from your parents,
I don't think
now
that's
you
how
are-
it works, Greg. I don't know. Maybe that's how they covered it on SCTV. Maybe that was Eugene Levy's take on it. But
that was a hilarious episode, by the way.
I don't think it worked that way.
That's what I heard of everything I read about Native
I
American
heard a
culture. They
lot
wouldn't-
of things.
They
Yeah.
didn't have slaves who were like slaves for the rest of their life, like, and their children were slaves. Native Americans didn't do that. It was just the Europeans who did that. Like,
I
even
just
the
want to know
Greeks-
why you
I
look
don't
like
think-
Kilroy right now, Greg. That's my biggest concern.
I
All
think
right,
that's
that's
a-
better.
do.
I don't think it was just the Europeans that. I mean, Europe did not invent slavery. I mean, there was
No,
slavery.
the Romans had
the
slaves.
Egyptians were really big slave people
I
way
know,
before
but-
Europe did it. So
They were slave
let's
people.
let's not like hate white people and go like white people invented slavery. It's been around a long time.
No,
and
I'm
brown
saying
people
they-
did it. Okay,
The
that's
Romans
what
and
you
the
said.
Greeks. No,
Maybe-
I'm saying the Romans and the Greeks had slaves, and they were very white. They were European. Their first
Egyptians
European
had
like,
slaves.
I know, but the Romans
They were
and
very brown.
Greeks did too. but they
Africans
a
had
different
slaves. They
take
were
on
very black.
They didn't say like, oh, they just had like prisoners of war. You're a slave, but you can buy your freedom. You're not like lesser than us. You're not an animal. Eventually, you could buy your freedom. The Europeans had this whole thing of like black people are just meant to be slaves forever. It doesn't matter who you are. You're just
Wow.
black and you're a slave. And every now and then there were some freed slaves. I know there were some exceptions.
There was a lot
It
of
was
freed
different.
slaves, and there were a lot of slaves that bought their way out of it. And your weird take on history is fascinating.
Some of
But
the
again, I didn't watch as much SCTV as you did.
no,
So,
but do you know that some of the freed slaves were even like recaptured and just like
you know, I don't really think the Egyptians were like, hey, the Hebrews aren't really slaves, and
I think what's happening is you're talking about different eras, and Greg is not quite understanding that you're talking about a
the
different
Egyptians were
era
bad
of
too.
civilization, and Greg is talking about America.
No, I know about Egyptians, but I know that there's different kinds of slavery.
And I want to
There's
take
different
that quote
attitudes.
and I want to put it on a T-shirt also, which is, "I know about Egyptians." So that's
I
an
know about
excellent
Egyptians.
quote, Greg.
Or how about there's different kinds of slavery?
I
That would
think
go
you're
well.
like exceptionally drunk today, is what I think is going on here, Greg.
I am, but
because
I'm
I think
also
these comments are definitely being filtered through a bottle of Holocaust whiskey.
in vino veritas.
I heard some stuff about how the Native Americans were like not like, you know, they were different slaves.
They were.
John
The Native
Candy
Americans
told me
did
in
not
a fever dream.
I guarantee you that there was no like.
Did you
class
learn
in-
about the Uzbeks from the Schmengi brothers?
Oh,
yeah,
I wish. I love the Schmenki brothers. No, they were Polish or Slovakian or something.
You know, that's
Well,
what
you know,
let's
let's actually
where-
talk about the genocides that have like the death tolls. I got a whole list of genocides that have taken place over the last couple of hundred years.
Before you go on, the word slave comes from Slavic because the Slavs were some of the first slaves, and they were enslaved by mostly African Muslims.
Are you being serious with that statement, or you just made that up because
No, I didn't make that up. That's
slave and
relatively
Slavic is
that is where slave comes from.
You know, even though I'm drunk, I know
that's
that
the
many
derivation of the
Africans-
word. I got to look that up.
I know that many Africans enslaved their fellow Africans. I know this. I'm not being like snowflake Portland guy here.
But it was different. It was a different kind of slavery, Greg. They were
No, the
nice
Native
and
Americans
cool about
did
it.
though.
Like,
Native
oh, you're a
Americans
slave,
did.
but it's cool. We're all cool.
The Native Americans never like were like, okay, now your son is my slave and your grandson is my slave. It didn't work that way. It was a different kind.
Well, there's a lot of different.
Look it up. Google it.
Okay. Well, I'll Google it. There are a lot
Is
of
it on the
different-
dark web, Greg?
It's on the dark web. There are a lot of different Native Americans too. I mean, the natives up in the Pacific Northwest were a real chill bunch compared to the people out on the plains.
The Aztecs. Yeah, they were different than the Aztecs, that's for sure.
Yeah, those guys had
But guys,
slaves, and they
just so you
ripped
know,
their
on
hearts out.
I'm Wikipedia Jones here. So that's
for
I
it.
get my information from good sources.
Wikipedia
Wikipedia.
Jones.
Yeah.
So you're saying that's where you read that information, Greg?
No, I don't know. I read it. I was a history minor. I read a lot of history books in college. I had to.
You learned a lot of minor history, it sounds like, but mainly
I
coal
know.
miners, I would think.
Apparently.
So
You
let's
learned
go
about
through
the coal
the
mines.
top 10 genocides, sort of like the David Letterman thing.
So to confirm, though, what Brenda was saying, Greg, he's correct. It's not necessarily Slavic; it's Slavonic, which is the language of the Slavs. So it's also Polish as well as the Slavic people. But Slavic people being like Slovenia, Latvia, Bulgaria,
That whole area.
the
And
Balkans.
They were enslaved by the Turks and some of those other
Everybody
people.
else, I think because I don't know if you ever read the book Poland from James Michener, but Poland was often like the country that everybody would nibble off of and own at different times. The interesting thing, it was one of the first democracies in the world too, is Poland. They would actually vote for their king, and if they didn't like the king, they'd vote him out and get a new king.
But they couldn't even screw in a light bulb with our 10 guys there. So,
and that's why the Poles were one of the first genocides that took place in the last couple, well, not the first genocides, but one of the major genocides that took place. The Polish operation of the NKVD from the Soviet Union. 22% of the Polish population of the USSR was sentenced, and over 250,000, the highest estimate, 250,000 Poles were killed by the Soviet Union back in 1937 and 38, just as like the World War II was heating up.
but they didn't control Poland at the time. Poland was its own country in 1937, 38, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That was just war.
I mean, it was about to be taken over by Hitler. You know.
Yeah, but that was just war. They were just like killing an enemy. It
Well,
wasn't
okay,
like, oh, we're
so
killing
it was a mass
race.
murder that was specifically aimed at the Polish ethnic group by the orders of Stalin. And it was specifically constituted genocide defined by the UN Convention for Genocides.
Okay.
So somebody else calls it a mini genocide. And
A mini genocide.
That doesn't
right.
sound that many.
More than 100,000 people were killed on spurious grounds that they had a disloyal ethnicity because Stalin spoke of Polish filth.
So I wonder why they picked the Poles?
Because people don't like the Poles. They make jokes about them.
Well, you know, but that comes from that, Greg. That's what makes it okay. You know, that's why
I
people
know.
said things
Lesser
about
than.
Jews
You have
and
to
other
someone
groups.
seem lesser than.
Right.
You make someone feel less that they're not
But
as good as us. So
this
they
is all
deserve to
really
die.
fascinating, but what still doesn't answer the question of why would Russia pick the Pole? I mean, it's not like in a weird way, you can see how Hitler picked the Jews. It was a different religion. It was a very different ethnic. I mean, it was a very different thing. It was
I think often it comes down to money and property is I think what these things probably stem from. It's like we want what they have.
Yeah.
Right,
And so if we can demonize them and kill them off, we can, and you know, and Nazi Germany was a prime example of that. They got rid of the Jews and they took all their stuff.
Well, yeah, because they had stuff to take. But what I'm saying is,
after they're dead, it's easy to take their stuff. Yes, but the Poles also had stuff too. They had land, right? Like I said before, they were one of the first democracies that actually was
Finland
something
had
that
land.
monarchies weren't very happy with. Right, and you know, a lot of people. Poland was actually a relatively big country back in the day too, but again, people started biting off portions of it for themselves.
Why do you keep using that word "bite"?
Because they wouldn't swallow it whole.
Because Matt's hungry. He hasn't eaten his meal yet.
Right. I haven't been fed my kibble yet today from my.
Can
owners.
I do a little aside here? So I have this idea that when water becomes more precious. And do you know that Canada has like almost all the great fresh water that hasn't been unnationalized? The government owns the water, all that fresh, beautiful water in Canada. I think in 50 years, all of a sudden, Canadians are going to be slurred. There's going to be jokes about Canadians, and they're like, "Oh, the Canadians suck."
It's already begun, Greg. It's already started. The ridicule
nice.
of the Canadians.
Well, we say they're nice. I mean, it's like mild humor. But I think in 30 years, when we're desperate for water, it's going to be like, oh, those Canadians, those dirty.
Now, why do you think we're going to be desperate for water in 30 years, Greg?
You don't think we're going to be?
No. Why?
Do you follow science or the news?
Martin Short.
I'm asking your question.
Yeah,
I'm
Martin
asking
Short
you the question.
told me this. There was an SCTV skit about it, Matt. So that's how I know. No, it's obvious. It's like water is like.
You say things are obvious that aren't necessarily obvious, Greg. Tell me your facts.
Because there's too many people on the planet, and fresh water is getting polluted every day, and we're running out of fresh water. And soon it's going to be like we're not going to be fighting over oil anymore. We're going to be fighting over just fucking a drink of water, like Road Warrior.
But in 30 years, you're saying we're going to be out of fresh water.
Yeah.
My kid is going to be 42 and fighting for water.
Is that why? Is that why you drink so much?
crazy?
Is that why you drink so much booze, Greg? Is you're trying to do your part to not use the water supply?
Well, if there's water in my booze, I'm still.
Don't you think we would just figure out an effective way to desalinize?
Yeah, that's it. Humans
water?
are so good at that. Yeah, we'll just figure it out. We won't have fighting, squabbling, wars that'll get in the way of that.
No wonder it's called Holocaust bourbon, whatever the fuck. Jesus,
No,
dude.
if we were good humans like we should be, we'd easily figure it out.
I mean, to me, it sounds like you're preparing yourself to be the leader of the next genocide of the Canadians.
If I can't get us,
he's going to be in his 80s.
Invade Canada.
If he makes it, if Greg makes it to 80, I'll swallow a Poland whole.
A Poland.
He's going to find a number of different countries called Poland. He's going to take one of them and he's going to swallow it whole.
Yeah.
You guys, I'm not going to make it to 80. I'm glad I'm not going to make it to 80 because this
You think you're not going to make? I think you are preserving everything within you with all the stuff you
I'm
drink.
pickling myself. You're saying?
Yes,
No,
exactly.
I'm saying, but by the time I'm 80, this world's going to be fucking Mad Max. It's like it's going to be the polar ice caps are going to melt. Climate change is going to be a fucking shit show. It's like this isn't the Holocaust whiskey talking. This is just logic talking.
What about
science?
What about the super volcano, Greg?
That too. That could happen too. Fuck.
Yeah.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
smoke them while you got them.
We don't got long.
So that means it's time to just allow Trump to become president again, because if everything's going to hell anyway, you may as well have it like moved faster. Well, then what's your solution, Greg? What's your solution? I mean, it sounds like your solution to the the looming 30-year water shortage is to take over Canada, is what it sounds like.
No, we're going to want to. I'm saying we're talking about how
it won't be hard.
People start disparaging the people, saying they're lesser than. I guarantee you.
You don't think Canada would just give us water, Greg?
No, it's going to be the most precious thing on earth.
Those filthy Canadians, no.
Why would they give us water, Matt? Does anybody give anyone anything in this world?
Well, I don't mean give, but they would probably sell it to us. They'd create a water pipeline through all the Native American burial mounds.
But we'll be this desert wasteland from global warming, and we might not have the money anymore to pay them.
If we all move to the mountains, we'll be fine.
I'm just gonna go walk. I'm gonna go walk into the ocean and just be done with it.
I think he's going to walk into the ocean with his desalination equipment so that he can have water, is what he's going to do.
That's a smart idea.
It's all hopeless because science says we're all going to die.
Yeah, I mean, there are ways to get fresh water from bad water, Greg.
No, there's not.
Yeah, there is.
No, there's not, Matt.
There is.
We won't do it.
People
will just
cooperate,
fuck it up and we'll all die.
All of our wells are going to dry up. It's just going to turn into a desert country, is what Greg is saying.
I'm now officially the first acolyte of the Greg Pettix doomsday cult. We're all going to die.
I don't know if you guys know, but like the permafrost in the Arctic, when that starts melting, it's going to release all the carbon dioxide. That could happen in 20 years, they're saying.
Oh, it's not going to release the carbon.
Spiral.
It's going to release not only the carbon dioxide, but the crazy killer prehistoric viruses that killed the woolly mammoths.
And methane.
Yeah.
And the meth heads from the Jurassic era.
And zombie
meth heads. Meth dinosaurs.
Dinosaur meth dealers.
That makes zombies. So
I don't know that there was ever like an actual zombie virus that was in like the Pliocene period, or
you don't know. Nobody knows.
That's true, Greg. I don't know.
Were you there?
Fauci knows. I call Dr. Fauci. He knows everything.
He doesn't
know everything, but he certainly knows epidemiology. We'll give him credit for that. But yeah, he knows some things. But anyway, so I'm just going to go through a list of genocides starting from these all go back to like the 1800s, moving up in terms of amount of people killed.
So like
and if you guys have any questions, we can discuss them in a little more detail.
But we're going to go from the bottom, meaning the lowest, to the number one. Like
number one
genocide.
Number one is the Holocaust. We'll just say that off the bat. But moving down to the bottom, something called the Black War, which is the genocide of Aboriginal Tasmanians done by Australia, and that was in the mid 1820s to 1832. Where it was just they were killed 400 to 1,000 of them. I guess there wasn't that many to get rid of. And
didn't we kill way more Native Americans than that?
Yeah, we haven't gone that far yet, Greg.
Oh, okay.
But not as a specific planned genocide. That's the difference.
That's true.
The killing of the Native Americans was like accidental. It wasn't like we're going to go specifically wipe them out.
Yeah, we want their land. So
yeah, but they're smallpox blankets is just par for the course. All right, then we have the Moriori genocide, which took place from New Zealand, and that was like about 1,900 people. 95% of their population was eradicated because of the invasion from Taranaki, which is a group of people from the Ngati Matungo and they were all enslaved, and many were cannibalized. The language of the Morioris is now
Were they
extinct.
European? Because that sounds like something Europeans would do.
No, it was Taranaki, who were from the
That doesn't sound
Ngati
European.
Matungo, which is somewhere in the Chatham Islands near New Zealand. So
So they took a bite out of them, you're saying?
they did
A
their
lot of
own
bites?
genocide amongst themselves.
They took lots of bites out of them.
The Anunnakis.
Yeah, they were each individual Polands, is what they were. All right, then we had the genocide of Yazidis by the Islamic State. And that was in northern
That's
Iraq
recent.
and Syria. That was just in the last 8 years.
Yeah.
So that was between 2,100 to 10,000 people who were killed there.
Yeah, those are Kanye's people, the Yazidis.
You mean the Yeezys?
The Yeezys, yeah.
Yeezys.
That's what we know them here in the US as the Yeezys.
The Easy East?
The Khan Yazidis west.
The Yazidis.
But they were east. They were back in the Middle East. All right.
Yeah.
So then we have the Selknam genocide in Chile near Tierra del Fuego. That was in 1880 and 1910, between 2,500 to 4,000 people. And the genocide reduced their numbers from around 3,000 to 500 people. And now pure Selknams are considered extinct. Then in 1804, we have the Haiti Massacre. Doesn't say who did that. I'm not going to get into it. That was
the Haitians.
3,000 to 5,000 people. Then the Parsley Massacre in the Dominican Republic. That was in 1937. 1937 had its share of genocides, apparently. Yeah, I think what they did is like the cilantro people said, no more. And we're taking out the parsleys in the Dominican Republic. And that was 12,000 to 20,000 people.
I mean, honestly, cilantro is a way more useful garnish than parsley.
But
So,
parsley's greener, you know, and
it's greener, but it's got zero flavor. You know
it's
what I mean? It
good
doesn't
for your
feel
breath. But, you know, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of cilantro either. It tastes kind of soapy to me.
soapy.
A little
You're
bit.
You're doing it wrong.
Eating cilantro and parsley. All right, then we have the Bosnian genocide, which most of us are probably familiar with, who are been born for the last, you know, before the 90s, which took place in Bosnia-Herzegovina between 1992 and 95, and that was between 8,000 to 40,000 people were killed. More than 3% of the Bosniak population perished during the Bosnian War.
You'd be surprised, Matt. I used the reference "a bad day in Bosnia" with somebody.
Yeah.
And they went, "What the fuck is that supposed to mean?" And I'm like, "Bosnia?" And they're like, what's Bosnia?
What's a Bosnia? Is that a seasoning?
They're like, "Was that part of the Soviet Union?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean,
It's like, well, have you ever heard of Yugoslavia? Well, there's a reason, because it got destroyed because of that war.
Yeah.
So there is a genocide that is currently ongoing right now.
oh God."
It's called the Rohingya genocide in Myanmar, and it's killed between 9,000 and 43,000 people. And there was a 2015 refugee crisis in 2016, 2017. The Rohingya population in Myanmar was around 1 to 1.3 million, and over 900,000 refugees have fled to Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So more than 100,000 Rohingyas in Myanmar are confined in camps for internally displaced people. I wasn't even familiar with that one.
Yeah, no, I work with a developer who's in Bangladesh, and I've been working with him since then. And when that happened, it was just like the streets were just suddenly, like, over a course of days, were just filled with people, like it was like a big rock concert. It was like you looked out his apartment window, and there was a few people, and then there was more people, and there was more people, and those were the refugees.
Yeah, it just goes to show, Greg, it's not just white people wiping people out. You know,
I never said that.
And you know what's interesting about
Never
Myanmar?
said that.
Those are fascist Buddhists, and the people that are escaping Myanmar are Muslim. That's why they went to Bangladesh.
And you think the Buddhists are so cool with their like flags and their
right? You're like, woo, rock Tibet, Beastie Boys.
Yeah.
No, they were fascist Buddhists.
That's an interesting concept to wrap my head around, fascist Buddhists, because they tend to be less worldly in that sense.
It really kind of contradicts, everything we're led to believe about, and I think it's probably true with 99% of all Buddhists recommend brushing 3 times a day. But some of them, the ones in Myanmar, are
Buddhist dentists, you mean?
Yeah, they're real assholes about the Muslims in that country, and and so they fled to Bangladesh, which is a Muslim country.
Ah, got it. Okay, well then we have Queensland Aboriginal Genocide in Australia, and that was 1840 to 1897. It was 10,000 to 65,000 people. Nearly 50% of the Aboriginal population was killed in that period of time. So that's them trying to get land, I'm sure. Then there was a California genocide. So that was in 1846 to 1873. And I know currently there are some people in the country who would really like to reinstate a California genocide, but that was the Amerindian population in California. So that's where like a Native American genocide specifically took place, was in California. And that was between 9,500 and 120,000 people were killed. The Amerindian
population. America had California, or was California still
well, it was 1846 to 1873, so that was around the time of the gold rush.
What was in between the times? I think Mexico owned California. When did we get California?
I don't know, look it up. But anyway, so that took place, like the Amerindian population declined by like 80% during that period. So that was like very, very severe. All right, then we have, again, in the last 20 years, the Guatemalan genocide, although that took place over the course of 30 years. Between 1962 and 1996, about 32,000 to 166,000 people were killed. That was the Maya population of Guatemala in 2 specific regions. Then we have the Herero and Namakwa genocide in German Southwest Africa. Not familiar with that. That was in 1904 to 1908, where 34,000 to 110,000 people were killed. We have the deportation of the Crimean Tatars. This is with the Soviet Union having a field day again. This is 1944 to 1948. So just after World War II, they got themselves a nice little genocide going after the Crimean Tatars, where they reduced the population between 18 and 46%. Then the genocide against
the all of you following along at home, we will be doing this for the next 2 hours. This is like a marathon.
Oh, yeah.
Matt just reading these incomprehensible ethnic groups that we've never heard of, and with ranges
they're all dead.
Between like maybe 100 died or maybe 100,000. We don't know, but it certainly happened between this 30 or 40-year time period. I think more rednecks died in Pinellas County from ODing on opioids than all of the other ethnic cleansing things that you've brought up.
But that was their choice.
No, it wasn't. Was it their choice, Greg? I don't.
All right, I'll
so.
just go into the larger death tolls.
I would like to die from opioids.
I will go into 500,000 and up death tolls. We'll take out all the other ones. So next we'll go into the Holocaust in Croatia, which includes the Serbian genocide between 1941 and 45. And that was between 200,000 and 500,000 people. The Assyrian genocide by the Ottoman Empire between 1950 and 1923, 200,000 to 750,000 people. Genocide in Bangladesh in 1971, East Pakistan, was between 300,000 and 3 million people.
Yep.
The Dzungar genocide from the Qing dynasty from 1755 to 1758, that was 480 to 600,000.
More of
the
those
Zungarian Oirots were killed. What'd you say?
I said more of that European stuff.
That's right. Those Chinese Europeans.
Yeah.
There was a Greek genocide by the Ottomans. 25% of Greeks in Anatolia and Turkey were killed.
They were killed by furniture, folks.
Those Ottomans came to life and destroyed them all. And then the dressers were next. All right, I'm just going to keep moving along to the top 5. All right, so number 5 genocide, the Circassian genocide from Russian-occupied Circassia from 1864 to 1867. That's where 600,000 to 2 million people were killed. 95% to 97% of the total Circassian population were killed or deported by the Russian forces. And the only a small percentage who accepted to convert to Christianity were allowed to resettle within the Russian Empire, which is kind of interesting. So that was obviously before communism. The Cambodian genocide in democratic Kampuchea from 1975 to 79, that is 1.3 million to 3 million. 15 to 33% of the total population of Cambodia were killed.
Pol Pot.
including 99% of Cambodian Viets. So like nearly an entire race was wiped out just in the 1970s. All right, then we have the Nazi genocide of the ethnic Poles in German-occupied Europe in 1939 to 45. That was 1.8 million to 3 million. That's 6 to 10% of the total Polish Gentile population. In addition, 3 million Polish Jews were killed during the Holocaust in Poland.
Wait, they killed 1.8 million Gentile Poles. I thought the Poles were their allies.
No, they were occupiers of Poland.
I know.
They conquered Poland.
But okay, so this is better than SCTV. I read that graphic
I was
novel.
going to say you missed that episode. It was a whole thing.
No.
Where
This
Martin
is
Short-
Mouse, that famous graphic novel by Art Spiegelman, where his father lived through the concentration camps, and he said the Poles were like so into it because they were like, we hate the Jews too. We don't like being conquered, but now that you've conquered us, we really hate the Jews, and we'll totally help you kill the Jews. The Poles did
don't
like the
you know
Jews
that
either.
whole saying from Martin Niemöller, Greg? They didn't come. They came for the Jews, but then they came for everybody else.
Wait, who do you claim that was by?
Martin Niemöller.
No, that was by what's his face?
Yeah, what's his
John
face?
Candy.
That's what they call
Elie
him.
Wiesel?
It wasn't Elie Wiesel who said that.
Ethnic
He may have
Weasel.
repeated it. Martin Niemöller was a Protestant priest in
Okay.
Nazi Germany. I don't have the exact quote, obviously, but yeah, that's where that comes from. Anyway, so the Nazi genocide of the ethnic Poles. Then we have Holodomor, which I've never heard of before, but this is the number 2 genocide in
That's
the
near
last
Narnia.
years.
That's next door.
That was in 1932 to 1933. 2.7 million to 7.8 million people. Data from the opening of the Soviet archives records deaths. It doesn't say who those people are, who the Holodomor are. So let me take a quick look since they're number 2. Oh, the Ukrainians. It was also known as the Terror Famine or the Great Famine. It killed millions. It was a large part of the wider Soviet famine, blah, 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 blah. But it was a man-made famine. It was allegedly intentional because they rejected aid and they confiscated people's food and they restricted population movement so that they had to die. Holy crap. So, okay.
7.8 million?
Yeah, that's the high end. Low end is 2.7 million of the Ukrainians. So, and that was the Soviet Union. That was like full-blown Stalin going, I got some people to get rid of. Unless it was Lenin. When did Stalin come to power? I don't know. Anyway, and finally, there's the Holocaust in German-occupied Europe, which went from 41 to 45, with between 4.2 million to 7 million people, including 2/3 of the Jewish population of Europe.
But I've heard that that's maybe not true, the Holocaust. Is that
right? There's no records of it. No one ever
I
said they
read
were
on
in
the
a
dark
camp.
web.
No one ever was tattooed with like a number for themselves who were part of the
Well, I get my news from
concentration
Breitbart
camps.
and Reddit, so I don't
And
know.
SCTV apparently.
Yeah,
So-
SCTV had a whole sketch about that. It was hilarious.
A sketch.
It's just a sketch.
All right. Well, we've used up most of our time actually doing the genocides. We should probably quickly get Waspy Soda Pop out of the way, and then we can move into Ask Greg.
Can I just say, you were going to give us a top 10 and you gave us like 30. You said
No, I
here's
didn't
the top
start
10
off with a top 10.
I thought you were going to say that. I thought that's what you said. We're going to do the top 10 genocides, and then it was like 35.
No, I didn't say I was going to do top 10. I said I was going to do a list from the least to the most.
Oh,
And then it became overwhelming, and Brendan very correctly pointed out that it was
yeah.
very
I
overwhelming.
wish you did the top 10. Maybe that's why I thought so. I was like,
I thought you might want to know about some of those lesser-known genocides that took
It
place.
was interesting.
2,000 people.
All of those notes will be down in the show description. And for all the rest of you college students doing your term papers on the Holocaust of the world, please make sure to like and subscribe.
Oh, the Happy Hour news team
Holodomor.
just came on YouTube to ask us who had the highest body count in the shortest amount of time. Like, I don't know, man. I just closed that window.
The
So-
highest body count in the shortest amount of time was that.
It sounds
rapper
like
that
it would have
did
been the
show in Houston.
Number one. I think it was the Holocaust because that was 41 to 45. That's like nearly 7 million people. Oh, no, actually not true. The Holodomor, that's 1932 to
Holodomors.
33. That's like nearly 2.7 to 7.8 million people in like a year. So that's pretty significant.
I think the Holodomor guys get the speed Holocaust trophy.
It's somebody with a stutter asking you to like keep the door open.
The Holodomor.
Say Holodomor.
Holodomor.
What about the
I'm not gonna
Terminator?
hold your door. You hold on the door. That's it. I'm killing everyone.
What about Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Terminator? Like he killed a lot of
Schwarzenegger?
humans. He killed a
Yes.
lot of humans in like 2 days in that movie. It
He
was like a
killed
lot.
a lot of humans.
Yeah, that was his genocide. He was a robot, so he was like, "I'm going to genocide the humans."
Well, the robot genocide.
That
is
wouldn't
coming.
be like a genocide, Greg. That's a small group of people. It's a number of murders. It'd be close to serial killing, but it wouldn't be genocide.
Okay.
Anyway, moving on to Waspy Soda Pop. Here we go.
Food is for eating. Food is for eating. Food is for eating with Waspy Soda Pop.
Hey there, everybody. This is Waspy Soda Pop with another edition of Food is for Eating. I have a great treat for you today because most people love this. If you don't, there's something wrong with you. You're either mutant or inbred because it's nachos. Just about everybody loves nachos except for you. I know who you are. Anyway, so these are simple. First, you want to get a family-sized bag of tortilla chips. You want to get some ground salamander. Recommend using like one giant salamander, or you can get like 10 smaller salamanders. That should give you enough protein for your nachos. Just get like an ounce of newts for seasoning. That should be fine. You could find those in like your local bog if you got one. Some diced green chilies or jalapenos. Get some taco seasoning. You can get that at like a grocery store in like a little baggy thingy, but like where you get the gravy and stuff. Anyway, toppings. You want to get cheddar, Monterey Jack cheese. Really, whatever kind of cheese you like, you can put it on there. Some don't work quite as well. I don't recommend Limburger, but if you like that kind of cheese, you know what? Stick it on your nachos. It makes everybody happy whenever they have what they want, right? All right, then some avocado, or you can get some guacamole. It's your choice. You can buy that either prepared, or you can make it yourself if you know how to make guacamole. If you don't know how to make guacamole, then don't make it. Sour cream is another good thing to add to nachos for a topping. We can also have pico de gallo or gallo, depending upon if it's a female or a male. So you'll figure that one out. Now here's how you make these. You preheat your oven to 375 degrees. You want to place the tortilla chips on a baking sheet. Just spread them out in even layer, like on an 18 by 13-inch baking sheet. Set that aside. You're going to heat olive oil in a 12-inch nonstick skillet, or whatever kind of skillet you want to use. It's just, I mean, if it's sticky or it's non-sticky, you know what you're going to have to do for cleaning later. Anyway, you want to heat the olive oil over to medium-high heat. Add in your salamander, put in your newt, cook it, crumble it, toss it occasionally until it's cooked through. It's about 6 minutes. Drain the fat. Now, salamander and newt are generally pretty lean pieces of meat, so it won't be too much fat, but there might be some. Anyway, add in your flavorings. Put in the tomato sauce, put in the chilies, put in the taco seasoning. Layer the salamander and the newt mixture with the cheeses on the nachos. You want to spoon it evenly over the chips. You want to sprinkle all the cheeses over your salamander layer. Then you bake it in an oven. I'm sure you preheated it because I told you to in the beginning, until it's melted, about 5 to 8 minutes. Then just add the rest of your toppings. Your avocado, your guacamole, your pico de gallo. Put some sour cream on there and serve that immediately. Otherwise, it gets all weirdly coagulated, and then, you know, it's sometimes not so much fun to eat. But there you go. Those are snachos. That's how I call them, because it's salamander newt nachos.
Food.
What is his problem, man?
I don't
Why
know.
can't you just put chicken on him?
He could have been dropped on his head as a child or something.
What's wrong with just chicken or beef on nachos? Why salamander?
Maybe it's like a very tasty thing, you know?
Well, I mean, I would assume that it's similar to frog, you know, in terms
Or
of
gator?
No, gator is very different than frog. Frog is very fatty and greasy, and if you've ever had it.
Yeah, frog is kind of greasy.
But so I would assume salamander, but I think he's cooking it too much. I think that he overdid it on the salamander cooking. I think.
Well, I mean, it's got to go with like nachos, so you kind of want to grind it up a little bit. And
well, I'm saying the amount of time he cooked it in the olive oil.
Oh,
I think that should have been, maybe a minute or two on each.
For
side.
smaller salamanders, but I think for a large salamander, you might need to have a little extra
But
cooking
those big
time.
Asian monster salamanders.
Yeah. One of the Chinese giant salamanders.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that could be true.
Yeah,
Bigger piece of meat.
Exactly.
More heat for a bigger piece of meat, they always say.
Yeah, they always say that.
They said that in SCTV.
They did. That was a big John Candy quote.
I'm just wondering how you guys like switched on my screen. Like before, Brendan, you were in my upper left and Greg was at the bottom, and now it's gone.
Because we hacked you.
I don't know. I feel like we've always been on either side of you this way since I've been watching it.
I think it just changed. Maybe it changed when I shared the screen or something. It's possible.
Is it throwing you off, man?
Happy Hour News Team suggests that we give the Quibbly for best Holocaust to Russia. So
I think Russia definitely is.
Stalin killed a lot more, I think, people than his own people than Hitler did.
Well, that's why no one talks about him, because Hitler killed outside of his country, and Stalin and Pol Pot just killed their own people, and we were like, whatever.
No, Hitler killed like 6-7 million of his own people, Jews and gypsies.
But then he started marching.
Yeah, but that was throughout Europe, though, Greg. He was rounding them up from all the different countries that were occupied.
Yeah, but he was selectively killing the people he didn't like.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what genocide is. It's selectively killing the people you don't like, Greg.
Exactly, but Stalin killed more of his own
people that he didn't like.
Yeah. We're all in agreement.
What are you talking about?
Well, we are now because I said it. You guys agreed with me. Thank you. Yeah, Stalin killed more.
No one disagreed with you that he killed
No, you did. Stalin killed more in these genocides.
Yes, he killed more, which is why we were going to give him the Quibbly, because he killed more people. All I said was that it gets less press coverage because he killed his own people, and then you got off into this whole thing about how Hitler killed his own people too.
No, that's why.
I would say that Greg has killed more brain cells than Stalin killed.
Nobody says Alexander the Great is the great genocidal monster because he was conquering countries. He was a warlord. He fought countries and he killed people. That's
I think we should get into these details with our next edition, our next segment of asking Greg. I think that
are we do war crimes?
We're doing a special war crime edition of Ask Greg. So here we go.
Should I speak in a Hague accent?
Sure.
Yeah, that'll work. But let's get your jingle going.
He has an opinion, may not always be right. He's a real fake lawyer. He's old and he's white. Ask him a question, 'cause he's a good egg for bogus advice. Ask Greg. Ask Greg. Ask Greg.
I love how Levana says that I'm not often right, and I'm never right. No, he's never, ever right.
All right, well, here's the question I'm posing to you. Here's your international law question for today. What is the difference in international law between genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing?
Shit, that's a lot to unpack.
Yes, you have 1 minute.
Get real quick, the 4 topics again.
Genocide,
Alex,
crimes against humanity, war crimes, and I'll take ethnic cleansing for $300.
So genocide is just killing randomly. It doesn't matter. It's not like ethnic cleansing is a different thing where you're targeting a certain racial group or religious group. So, and then the other two, which I still can't remember.
Genocide is still a targeted group of people.
I thought this was Ask Greg, not Argue with Greg.
No,
that's a different segment. We already did Argue with Greg.
Oh yeah, that's what's happening.
Argue with me because I'm confused. I need him to keep me on topic. So, ethnic cleansing seems more like ethnic. Like you're actually genocide is okay. War crimes. Okay, war crimes is different. I could say that like us dropping the atom bomb on Nagasaki was a war crime. I mean, those are innocents. Wasn't really a military boon. We were trying to shock and awe them into giving up. It wasn't like, because we hate the Japanese are evil and this ethnic group. But you're right. Genocide and ethnic cleansing, isn't that pretty much the same thing? Genocide is like, we want to take out this particular group of people.
Well, from a legal point of view, what's the
That's what I
difference
mean.
between these? So
that's why I'm confused.
Well, you just need to come up with the actual answer then, Greg.
Okay, genocide is if you just kill lots of people that you don't like. Ethnic cleansing, you might even like these people. You might be like, hey, I'm a hootie. Which I'm surprised, by the way.
I'm a hootie? Like from the Hootie
tooties.
and the Blowfish?
The
I'm a
hooties and the
hootie.
tooties.
It's like Spartacus. I'm a hootie.
The Hooties and the
Stand to-
Tooties?
What about the
together.
hooties and the tooties in Africa? That wasn't mentioned on your list.
No, that was
That was Rwanda. There was the Hutus and the Tutsis, but that was much lower on the list. Yeah,
That's what I said. The Hutus and the Tutsis.
I heard
no, we're talking
I
about-
heard the Hootie and the Blowfish is what I heard.
We're talking about Hootie and Tootie, like Tootie and Fruity, like, you know.
So let's just say genocide could be like, isn't genocide just like the Latin Rudies, even just like, I'm just killing people who are in my way?
Isn't genocide done by white people and ethnic cleansing done by not white people? Isn't that how the law sort of splits it down the middle?
Only if slavery is involved.
It could be.
But
what was the fourth one? I'm lost already. So war crimes.
It's genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing.
Crimes against humanity could just be like the Nazi scientists who, you know, they maybe killed 20 people, 50 people, 1,000 people in their career working for the Nazis, right? Like those evil.
But what's the law? What's the ruling on it? So let's say you're convicted of one of these things. What are the punishments, and what has the bigger crime associated with it? The bigger problem associated with it?
Well, crimes against humanity would be like 20 to life, maybe, with good time parole.
With good times.
With JJ Walker.
You get to watch episodes of Good Times while you're in prison.
Dynamite. But I think all the other ones, you're dead. You're gonna die. They're gonna kill you. They're gonna put you in the electric chair.
Yeah.
Because those are pretty bad. Genocide's not a good thing, Matt. I don't know if you know this.
But I don't think they've killed anybody, have they? For those crimes.
They didn't kill Pol Pot. They just locked him in his house.
And what's his name from Slobodan Milosevic from
Wait, but did they go to the Hague and went to the tribunal, like whatever they call it in the Hague, the world?
Yeah, they hagged them and they tribunaled them, and then they went home and watched fucking cable.
They watched Good Times.
So they hazed him.
They watched Good Times at Jefferson's.
Is that true? Like they
see what
didn't
they're
just
missing.
say you should die.
That's true.
They didn't kill that guy.
They didn't kill either one of those two guys. Those guys
So he was
lived.
like a Hitler.
They died of old age.
Yeah, I think all those Idi Amin, he got to move to France or something, and
Stalin lived to be an old man and died.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
I don't
that
even think
just
he got
shows you
brought
the
up
law
on
is an
charges.
ass.
the only ones they killed were like the guys from Nazi Germany.
And Hitler killed himself, so he kind of cheated.
And some of those guys winds up just being in prison for life. So, you know, a couple
We're
of
moving to South
executions.
America. But
Right.
I think that it's basically this proves that the law is an ass and the law doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but
Because-
you're the law here, Greg.
I know. And as a lawyer, as a fake lawyer, I'm saying that sometimes the law, when it comes to power and money, it doesn't matter two shits. Like
Oh my
you could be
God.
the most egregious offender of the law. Of
This
world
overly
law.
thought through and preachy version of Ask Greg was brought to you by
By
Spano
Holocaust bourbon.
and Holocaust bourbon.
Normally, a Holocaust bourbon works much better in terms of getting something funny.
I'm sorry. This it's not that funny. Genocide.
That was a complicated one, man. You had me at the third
was.
thing.
I did. I made it kind of complicated, I suppose, by asking that a 4-part question.
It was very complicated for me. And
All right, so
my-
I'll make
my-
it simpler then. So, what is the international ruling for a dictator who commits genocide against a group of people outside of his country?
It's already complicated, man.
No, it's not that complicated.
Here.
I would like to say
Here,
it's
Greg.
death.
Let me give you mine. Dear Greg, if the stripper is my brother's cousin, is it okay to get a lap dance legally? Yes or no?
Of course it is.
Well, there you go. There's your
Even
answer.
if it was his brother, it would be legal to get a lap dance.
That would be a yes.
All right. See,
Yeah,
that was
I mean,
simple.
There's no laws against lap dancing in this country. I mean, it's different than genocide, Brendan. Lap dancing is different than genocide and ethnic cleansing in the law.
It's not. I mean, it's
in the eyes of the law. It's
but
definitely
in
different.
the eyes of the Lord. That's what I want to know.
The Lord would not care because you're not hurting anyone. You're not coming. You're not spilling your seed on the ground. Well, you might. Yes.
I don't know. That's a different discussion, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, what's the current ruling against onanism?
Well, legally, nothing. It's fine.
Oh, it's okay.
Own in all you want.
Okay.
Onanize all you want.
It's good
No
to know.
cop can arrest you.
All right.
Unless you're doing it in public.
Yeah, that would be a different issue. So what happens if you're doing it in public?
You get arrested.
Doing what in public?
Committing
Onanize.
onanism.
It's called onanizing, Matt. Just, the verb.
Is that how you make it into an infinitive?
Yeah, and if you simonize a car in public, that's a different thing.
Simonism is also the same thing.
I don't know. There's a lot of that that happens in Florida. All I know. It's just New York subways and convenience stores in Florida. It's kind of a thing.
According to the Happy Hour news team on YouTube, it says that North Korea has the highest body count that nobody knows about. The question is, how do they know about it then?
Yeah.
Nobody knows about it.
Well, they're a great news source, the Happy Hour news team. They're like CNN.
Yeah.
They're up there.
Yeah, but they don't usually do international stories, so they're usually about Florida more than anything else. So I think they're
Sanchez is the Don Lemon of North Dakota.
I don't know who Don Lemon is. So
he's on CNN.
Okay.
North Korea is like the Florida.
I should have said Anderson Cooper.
I was thinking that Don Lemon was like the guy from Soul Train, but I think it's Don Cornelius.
Yeah, it is Don.
No, it's Don King.
Or was it Godfather, Don Corleone?
That's somebody else.
Maybe a combination of all of them. Don Cornelius, Don Corleone,
Ho. That's a
Don King, Don Ho, Don the dishwashing detergent. All of them work
Tony,
together.
Orlando, and Don.
Yeah, that was a Don and Orlando. All right, enough of these horrible dad puns that we're playing.
Yeah,
here.
should we just shut this episode down right now?
Well, we basically, I think we've gone through the gamut of genocide, and number one genocide was the Holocaust. But I would say that overall, over time, the Soviet Union has killed the most amount of different groups of people. So I think they win in the murder category in general. So we will tip our hats to the former Soviet Union and the previous Russia for their excellent work at murdering and destroying people and taking their stuff for their own in order to expand their territory. So,
it was basically Stalin, though. Stalin was like, even though I'm a pinko,
for a large part of it, yes.
He was way more evil than Hitler, I think. I seriously think I think Hitler was this tortured, freakish weirdo, but Stalin was just like pure, straight on evil. Like he was just like.
Is that the name of the Hitler book you're writing, Greg?
Yeah.
Tortured, freakish weirdo.
No, I already wrote a short story about Hitler. Young Hitler in Love.
Hitler was the tortured, freaky weirdo.
And Stalin what was Stalin's title again,
just
Greg?
Pure evil, just like cold-hearted, didn't have 1 second of compunction about anything he did. Died happy in his bed. Just like, I did great. I'm a great guy. And now I'm checking out. He was just happy as a fucking clam his whole life. He was just like, this is great.
Why do they always say that? I don't think clams are happy. I think that's a dumb thing to say.
That is true.
What the
Clams
fuck?
don't seem that happy.
Clams are not happy. I've seen clams. I've eaten clams.
Yeah.
I've caught clams.
I've known clams and you're no clam.
They were definitely not happy when you ate them too. Like
they're not happy when you catch them.
Matt, would you do your quick internet shit? Why is happy as a clam an expression? Whoever thought clams were happy?
The same people that thought campers were generally happy.
Oh, right. Well, if we want, we could certainly go into another client for another day about why clams are happy. You know, where that comes
that is a
from.
weird one. I never thought of that. How like stupid that expression.
I mean, you know, if we're gonna
so apparently, so just as a quick response to that, so it's derived from the full phrase "happy as a clam at high water," where high water means tidal waves, and so the phrase means very happy and content with what a person has. Clams are collected during the low tides, or during the high tides, the clams are safe from the fishermen.
Oh.
So
that's not happy. That's just like, ooh, I didn't die today. That's not that
well,
happy.
that would make you happy, I think, that you didn't die that day because someone could take you and eat you.
I don't die every day, and I'm not that happy. I'm just like, ooh, at least I don't live in.
Greg, if half of your day was spent hiding from people who wanted to eat you, and the other half you were safe from people who were trying to eat you, I'd say you would be a lot happier.
I would be, but it's not necessarily happiness. It's just like, whoo, I survived another day. Cavemen weren't happy.
You're just saying that you have no empathy for clams, and you are all about the great clam holocaust that takes place on a regular basis, is what you're saying.
At the clam bakes?
Have either one of you been clamming? Have you ever clammed?
I have been there while people clammed, and I watched them. And
I've had clammy skin. Yeah, but
to catch a clam, it sounds like it'd be easy, but they're wily little fuckers. They're fast. This is why Greg didn't get involved, because there's a certain amount of athleticism to catching a clam.
Especially the gooey duck.
Those are actually probably easier than your standard clams because they're bigger, they don't move as fast. But your standard, like, you know, when you think about a clam, like you make clam chowder, they move pretty quick. You got to dig fast, and usually you're doing this drunk. At least I was, so you know.
I've been crabbing, but not clamming. I have gone for oysters before, but not clams. So
I don't know.
Maybe
oysters, don't you just scrape them off the side of something?
Yeah. You just pop them open and eat them. All right. Well, we have gone over our normal allotted time. I want to thank everybody who's paid attention on YouTube and TikTok. Yes, this has been live on TikTok again. We're doing this live every week, everybody, around this time. It's about 5 o'clock Pacific time. We are live on YouTube and TikTok. At least on TikTok, it's just the side of my head. And on our website at www.qsblaw.org, you will not see us live. You'll just see our cartoonish faces. But it can cause you to get to YouTube if you click on the YouTube icon. And next week we will have a guest. I don't remember what the person's name is, but he'll be here.
Fascinating, I'm sure.
I'm sure it'll be somebody that you guys will be going, really, Matt? Really? Another one?
I don't know. Maybe
you don't know.
Maybe it'll be amazing.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, we never know, really, because sometimes guests turn out a lot better than we think we will.
They
true. Will.
Yeah.
All right, so this has been the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker live on YouTube, and I'm now shutting down the. Can I shut down the lives? Yes, stop the live stream. See ya.
Your consultation with the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker has ended. You may pay your retainer at www.qsblaw.org. Please exit to the right of the water cooler and grab a candy from the front desk. We hope to see you again soon, but you need to leave now. I said leave. Why don't they ever listen? Get out! Get out!